Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including a preview of the state legislative session, which begins Monday. Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight is Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com, Cameron Sanchez of KJZZ Radio, and Jim Small of the Arizona Mirror panel. Good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Mary Jo, this is going to be pretty heavy now on what's going to happen Monday. What's going to happen Monday?
The sun will rise, and the governor will, and lawmakers will show up at the state capitol. They'll begin their session, and at about 2 o'clock, she will give her State of the State address to the legislature, as the Constitution requires. I mean, that's the dry version.
There you go. And we're going to get to the State of the State in a second here. But as far as the session itself, we'll narrow down into certain topics here in a second. But Mary Jo, again, starting with you, what do you expect? What do you think you're going to see?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that are going to need some fairly immediate attention when we can get into more detail on that in a bit, but about the automatic recount law, what to do about Prop 123, which is expiring. But really, probably the big overarching thing we'll be watching for is what are relations like between the governor and the Republican-controlled legislature after a year of having gotten to know each other. And the budget, because it will require some reductions, will be a big theme.
Yeah, Cameron, how will that relationship likely be? I mean, we had record vetoes last year. Are they going to be a little less volatile this time around?
We'll see, because it's an election year, so everyone has to be campaigning as they're legislating, so you sort of put forward bills that maybe make you look good in your campaigns, or you try to. I definitely expect there to be vetoes again. Some of the bills that she vetoed are coming back already. Republicans reintroducing them, so they probably don't have a chance. The budget is going to be, as always, a big issue because it has to have bipartisan support. It has to get through the governor and the Republican-controlled legislature. And this year, we're going to have to make some cuts. They might be temporary cuts, but there is a shortfall. So the budget's not going to be like last year was when we had a surplus to deal with and everybody had money to spend.
Yeah, and we'll get to the budget even more so in a second here. But as far as the Republicans sending over these no-chance bills to the governor, a lot of that activity last year. Same kind of thing this time around, or what do you think?
Unclear. I think that there is certainly a desire from the folks who back those measures to, in a lot of cases, I think, to send those back and to continue to, beat that drum and try to make those points. But I know you've had folks like House Speaker Ben Toma who have said, look, we made our statement. She's already on the record. We've already done this. We don't need to do this all over again if we know where it's going to happen. It's kind of a distraction, kind of gets us away from the focus of trying to just get our work done and get out of here, ideally in 100 days, so that way everyone can go hit the campaign trail. Of course, Ben Toma is running in a highly competitive primary election for a congressional district, so he has an added incentive to try to tamp that down. Whether that approach is going to hold the day, I don't know. Obviously, I think a lot of the things that happened last session were dictated by the Freedom Caucus, which is kind of the group of far-right lawmakers. Ostensibly they have a majority of both caucuses. And so if they decide that they really want to put those things forward and that they're going to go to the mat for them, I think that you're going to have to see leadership's going to have to make a decision as to how many things do they want to stand in the way of and how many things do they just want to say, okay, fine, let's just send it up there and we'll get another veto.
Toma's congressional run, how does that play into the dynamic here? I mean, is he going to say, let's get out of here quickly, or he can't afford to say no to too many wild things because there's some wild candidates running against him?
Right. No, I don't think he's going to set a deadline other than their at least hypothetical 100-day deadline. But it will drive some things. But he does, as you pointed out, he has sort of a narrow path to walk because his primary is you do want to appeal to more conservative voters. Although one of his opponents already has the Trump endorsement, but he's got to spend a fair amount of time at the Capitol, running things down there. It also might hamper some of his fundraising ability.
Interesting. But back to the idea of everyone kind of knowing. Last year, no one knew how this was this dynamic. This was a relationship. It was a first date. They get to know each other now. Will things run a little more smoothly?
I don't know. I would say it was a pretty awkward first date. They got through it, But there was plenty of fighting along the way. So I think the budget, I got to come back to it because it's going to be that first big hurdle. There are some Republicans saying now that they want to get the budget done first, which is not really what we usually do, and try to get it out of the way before we do any normal bills. And the governor already said she doesn't want to do that. So they're already arguing. But I think they try to get along until they don't.
Yeah. Sticking with the budget. Again, last time around, you got a surplus. This time around, no surplus. You got a $400-some-odd million debt. Could that actually streamline things where you look at X, Y, and Z, no chance for that, let's move on?
It sort of depends. So last year when we had a surplus, lawmakers got sort of an allowance, and GOP lawmakers each had a little bit of money to spend on personal projects or priorities, and that was actually a really nice incentive. That was popular with a lot of GOP lawmakers to get people on board because they had something concrete in the budget. But this year, nobody gets that. Nobody gets an allowance. And so that's harder in one sense because you don't get the incentive. And then on the other hand, maybe since there's less to go around, there's less to argue for.
Right.
So you could see it go in the other direction. Hopefully everyone gets along.
Yeah, not having to deal with the deficit, not only for the current budget, but for the coming year, it'll tamp down big spending bills. It's easy to say there's no money. But I can see a lot of quarreling over what of these one-time projects that came out of the allowances, as Cameron called it, who's got to give up?
Yes.
Their project.
Yes, the clawbacks. I mean, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of clawbacking, huh?
I think that's an obvious place to go, right? I mean, I think that what we're hearing is that this budget deficit is not structural. It's essentially kind of a one-time thing as the economy has kind of shifted a little bit and tax revenues have dropped off a bit. But it's not going to be a permanent thing. It's not a matter of permanent spending outpacing permanent revenues. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at really temporary solutions. A lot of that new spending last year was one-time spending, so there's an opportunity perhaps to claw some of that back. I think in particular, if you look at a lot of the infrastructure, the highway stuff, they basically took that money to accelerate projects at the Department of Transportation. They could decelerate those projects and take some of that money back, I think. The bigger issues are going to be, kind of around what one-time, aside from that, like what one-time accounting kind of maneuvers are still available that they can use that they haven't exhausted from the last time we had a slowdown back when, in the Brewer era and kind of the beginning of the Ducey era.
As far as targets, and Cameron, I'll stick with you on this one. As far as targets, what cities and towns going to see some action here? Who's in the bullseye here? To
get cut?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Jim was saying is right. Delaying projects because it's not necessarily a permanent cut. It's more like, we can't do it this year, but just postpone it until next year. Or maybe even some municipalities will step up and pay for things themselves, which I'm sure no one wants to do. But rather than having to chop, the salaries of department people, and of course the departments, most of the state agencies say that they need more money, and they always say that. So right. I don't think this is going to be the year.
Cities and towns already have taken cuts because of the elimination of the rental tax. For many cities and towns that had such a tax, they're going to lose money. I think Phoenix is saying, $70 to $90 million loss. But if you go off of yesterday's hearing in the state Senate on campus speech, the Republican lawmakers want to cut the university budgets, especially ASU. So watch for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, does it become that kind of a thing where the target has ideological aspects to it, or is the target just basically helping with the bottom line?
Oh, well, this is a legislature. Of course, the target has ideological aspects.
A little rhetorical there, but
yeah.
I mean, how much more so than usual?
Well, I mean, as much as the Republicans who have their hands on the purse strings want to make it, right? At the end of the day, when you start talking about cutting state spending, most state spending goes into three areas, right? It goes into healthcare, into the access to the Medicaid program, it goes into prisons, and it goes into schools. And the lion's share of that, the vast majority of that, isn't the university system, it is the K-12 system. So those are where, if you're going to start looking at making any kind of significant cuts, that's where any money has to come from. And those are difficult conversations, I think, to have for lawmakers, in particular, going into an election year where no one wants to go onto the campaign trail and say, yeah, I cut $300 million from public schools. That's not really necessarily, in a lot of cases, especially for a Republican majority that's trying to retain that majority, maybe not the best campaign, not the best thing to be taken onto the campaign trail.
But sticking with education, and you referred to this earlier, Prop 123, extending that, Republicans straight, the money goes straight to teachers, this sort of thing, send it to voters. I mean, can you cut over here if you're saying, look what we're doing over here?
Well, I mean, sure you can. I mean, sure you can. It's always a balance. And regarding Prop 123, which has been money from the state land trusts, it's for the last decade has been helping with the school budgets. Lawmakers want to go back to voters and say, hey, what if we just send that money instead to specifically to teacher pay raises? Hobbs hasn't said a whole lot about it, but obviously thinks it lacks details, and it will be interesting to see what kind of counter proposals she might have. I mean, she can, I guess, try to get something referred to the ballot.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, because Hobbs also said that she wants to pay teachers more, and we knew that because that's always been the case. She had a teacher retention group who basically concluded that paying teachers more money is going to help us keep teachers around, and Hobbs was in agreement with that. But when it comes to the details of it, we're not sure where the money is going to come from. So the question is, can her and Republicans agree on this Prop 123 thing? Because that's the Republican idea for how we're going to pay teachers more.
I was going to say, but if you can't agree on 123, is that an umbrella for, okay, we can do a little nibbling in other areas?
Maybe.
Yeah?
Maybe.
I guess that's the way it works. Speaking of education, ESAs. What's going to happen, if anything?
Well, last year, if you remember, the governor showed up and said, I want to repeal the universal school voucher program. And that was a dull thud at the legislature, went nowhere, and best I can tell, the governor brought it up a couple more times after that, and then never again. It was not a policy that resurfaced. This year, she's getting out ahead of the session and saying that instead of repealing it, we need to enact a series of reforms that are aimed at accountability and transparency and safety for students and for taxpayers. I don't think that that's going to get any more of a warm reception at the Capitol than what she said last year. This is a more serious proposal than what she said last year. I think last year was really just kind of a nod to the base and was something that was really aimed at, you know, trying to say the thing that I think a lot of Democrats and a lot of public school advocates have said, which is that we don't like this program. But this year, this idea of accountability and transparency, I think, is more in line with something that could be done to make the program work better. I mean, obviously, we've seen there's been a lot of stories about some of the things that this money's been spent on right. You know, grand pianos and luxury car driving lessons, learning how to drive in a Lamborghini, things like that, and I think that that's caused a lot of outrage for understandable reasons, and you know, a lot of these proposals would get at some of the criticisms that public school advocates have had the whole time about this system. But the reality is, I don't think that Republicans in the legislature are interested in considering any of these proposals.
None of them? No compromise? No way, no how?
I mean, unless you pull it into budget talks, I don't see it, because first of all, any of the governor's proposals will, if they show up, will be in Democratic bills, which, you know, often don't even get assigned to committees. So you stop it right at the beginning. And even if they move along, but I have heard of no Republicans who are interested in doing anything. The program's just fine as it's going now. And the only venue would be if you started to do horse trading over the state budget.
So that 8-point plan is out there, but the 8-point plan is going to stay out there?
Yeah, it's such a touchy subject. It's like if a Democrat says the word ESAs, Republicans have their hackles up, they're ready to fight, they're in defense mode. It was such a huge win for Republicans, and they know that Hobbs wants to destroy it. So when she says, oh no, I just want to edit it and make it better, won't you listen to my suggestions? They're like, no, we don't want to. Absolutely not.
And it's important to note that, I mean, Ben Toma, the speaker, he was the sponsor of the universal voucher bill, and it's the first in the nation, which, as Cameron said, Republicans are very proud of that. It's a badge of honor to say that this happened first in Arizona. They're not gonna cede ground on that.
And as we mentioned, he is running for Congress, and that puts a target up there as he does. Jim, the aggregate spending limit, we had quite the drama last year, quite the cliff. Is something going to be done about that, or is it going to be year to year?
Yeah, I mean, that's not an issue. I don't think that is on the table right now because I think that that was one of the things they'd addressed, right?
It wasn't. Yeah. The drama was 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then last year they sort of took care of it for 2 years running, but now that clock's going to run out, and somebody's got it.
Are they going to
I would be surprised if Jennifer Pollock did not bring it up again as a way to.
Marsh brought it up.
Okay.
As to get voters to just get rid of this thing altogether, or to change it or modify it. What?
That's always the big question.
Yeah, right. I think that's where the debate kind of has moved to. Is what do you do for the future? I think they kick the can far enough down the road that they don't have to. It's not a crisis. Every time they show up at the Capitol.
So no more crisis?
I talked to Marsh about it briefly. She proposed another temporary fix, so it could just be that we're going to kick the can down the road forever and never come up with a permanent solution to this.
The can's getting kicked quite a bit. Mary Jo, water. We had a lot of task forces. A lot of people are talking. A lot of people pontificate. Anything going to happen at the legislature regarding water? Oh,
I definitely expect that there'll be some movement on water. The governor had a water policy council. A lot of its recommendations were bipartisan, although some of the Senator Sine Kerr, who is the head of the Natural Resources Committee in the Senate and a representative of the agriculture industry, dropped out. They said they think this is just too, these ideas are just too far to the left. But we still have a lot of problems with our water. And we've got this thing called the pause that was put on home building in the far west and the far east valleys. And I get the sense that the governor's not going to let that stand for a real long time. You've had Senate President Warren Peterson, questioning, why do we have this 100-year standard for our water supply? And look, this pause is hurting our economy. It's sending bad message about Arizona nationwide. So I think there'll be some movement on that.
Peterson's question more rhetorical than anything else, or is the Groundwater Management Act has been around forever, and most folks seem to think it's a good thing, but I guess not everyone.
It has been, but I think that the issue becomes, when you move from, it's easy to prove a 100-year water supply in an area, and when it suddenly becomes more difficult, you have these shortages. What are the economic ramifications of that, right?
Right.
And the whole point of that assured water supply was to bolster the economics, to convince people that it was good to come here and that there was ample reason you weren't going to come here, build a house, and find out in 20 years you don't have water.
Right.
Build a neighborhood and suddenly you have ghost towns. That's what the whole thing is intended to avoid. But when you do run into the problem where you can't prove that, there are going to be some pretty severe consequences to that, and it means you're not going to be building houses. And for a state and a region that has really thrived on construction and on importing people from other parts of the country, that is brings about a sea change. And when you hit the brakes on something like that, I think that you're going to upset a lot of people.
Yeah. Real quickly, as far as water issues are going to kick that particular can down the beach, as it were.
I do think we're going to see movement on water. We've had a few hundred bills introduced so far, and water is the one that's coming up the most frequently. Little changes, but to groundwater in particular. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone knows that it's a problem. Everyone on both sides of the aisle. Hobbs's council has their recommendations about how we're going to, make sure everyone gets groundwater. And it's definitely an issue that plays into housing, because the relationship between water and housing, we've got to have both water and housing in Arizona. We kind of need those things. But there's these cuts that are made to where you can develop based on the water supply, and that makes the housing people unhappy. But then if you allow building to go on, without assured water, then that concerns the water folks who are like, you're kind of, you're asking for trouble here.
Yeah, and there seems to be, fairly a fair degree of agreement on doing something about these wildcat subdivisions, which are allowed to build in the metro areas that have a 100-year water supply requirement, but wildcats are exempt from that. So it's a loophole, and maybe closing that.
Sticking with you, Mary Jo, State of the State address, obviously Monday as well. What are you expecting to hear from the governor, and in terms of substance and in terms of tone?
I think the tone will be similar to last year in that she will be talking about doing things in a bipartisan way and being welcome, willing to work with anybody who wants to advance good legislation that's good for the people of Arizona, but probably not laying down these more strident markers or some of these policy positions that, well, like last year, she said she would be defending the freedom to choose when it comes to abortion, and people walked out on that. I think that, I don't know if we'll even hear anything about that this year because we've got the ballot measure going. So I think she's going to find a way to touch on topics where there is a sense that we all care about these issues and we can maybe come to some kind of consensus.
A less defiant tone, you think, this year, Jim?
Could be. I mean, I don't know that it was. I wouldn't have characterized her speech last year as terribly defiant. I don't know. I think it really was a matter of, trying to preach to the bipartisan nature of the fact that she was a Democrat elected in a state that has largely elected Republicans to be governor. I think we'll see more of that. I think in a lot of ways that is really kind of Governor Hobbs's personality. But I'm sure that we will still hear some things, where she will, take a firm stand on issues that are important to her and issues that she sees as being, vital for Arizona going forward. Whether that is, policy issues like, maybe water or regulation or education or even healthcare and reproductive rights.
Do you expect anything like we saw last year with people turning their backs and, as Mary Jo mentioned, people walking out?
I wouldn't be shocked if that happens again. I think it was a little surprising when it happened last year. It was surprising in the instant, and I think on reflection, maybe not as surprising, just given the makeup of the legislature, and wouldn't be, terribly blown away if that happened again this year.
You expect something like that this time around?
Why not? I mean, there were no repercussions for it or anything, I don't think. So I don't see why they wouldn't do it every year.
So what are you expecting to hear?
In the State of the State speech, definitely education. I mean, it's a really long speech, so she's expected to cover every single topic, but I think education is going to be a huge priority. Maybe skirt the whole I'm going to destroy ESAs thing, but talk about teacher raises, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Will she mention at all vetoes?
I don't know. It's a good question because it might be a little bit unpopular for her to go out and say, I'm so proud of myself for getting so many vetoes last year and beating that record. I stopped the Republicans to a room full of Republican legislators. I think maybe it would be more likely for her to say, we got a bipartisan budget through last year, let's do that again.
Yeah, and Mary Jo, these things, it's very self-congratulatory. Look at me, look what I did. We hear that almost all the time. But in this sense, one of her biggest accomplishments was that she didn't allow so many things to happen.
Right, but I emphasizing the negative really isn't, a winning thing. And, she'll point to other things that, that happened, primarily the budget, the Prop 400 agreement on the transportation tax, canceling the water leases for the alfalfa farms. I think that will be more the tone. I don't know why you'd bring up the vetoes. Everybody knows she's got that stamp, and most of them that are in the audience will have felt the sting of that. Yeah,
so ignore the vetoes, emphasize bipartisanship.
Yeah, I think that seems like the most likely path. Although who knows? Hey, like Cameron said, I mean, maybe who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she'll just upend everything and go out there and taunt the Republicans over vetoes. I mean, it seems unlikely though.
As far as and last question here as we go around, as far as Republican responses to the State of the State, Republican just the tone of leadership. We talked about State of the State tone. What about the tone of leadership this session?
I think one of the things we're going to have in this session is we had 3 brand new leaders last year who were all, I think, feeling out their jobs and feeling at each other and how to work together as they needed to. And they've, I think, done a lot of that. And so I kind of expect that all 3 of them are going to come into this year with more experience under their belts and maybe a little bit more able to kind of hit the ground running and figure out where can we work on things and where can we not. And so I think that's probably going to affect the tone. I mean, I think we've already seen Ben Toma kind of coming out and saying, hey, we need to be a little bit more measured this year. We really ran into it headlong last year, and let's maybe back off some of the more culture war or controversial kind of things. We don't need to do that again. I don't know if Senator Peterson has said as much. I would think that he seems a little bit more eager, generally, I think, to get into those kinds of fights.
That would be leadership. What about the loudest voices down there?
Oh, the Freedom Caucus?
Yes.
Well, yes. So there's, of course, the diametrically opposed Republicans and Democrats. They're always going to be fighting. That's the legislature versus the governor. But then within the Republican Party, you've got the old school Republicans dealing with the MAGA Republicans who don't always want to fall in line with the rest of the party, sort of have their own agenda almost. And that would be, I would say Jake Hoffman is the loudest voice there because he leads the Freedom Caucus. And of course, you know, they touted some of their wins last year, like I guess the Dino Committee would be considered a win, which is blocking Hobbs's nominees from going through the usual process.
Tax rebates.
Tax rebates was a big win for the Freedom Caucus. So those are interesting relationships too.
I think an early sign of this, you know, can we all get along together, will be how they deal with this issue of the ramifications of the automatic recount law, which passed in 2022, was immediately, it was immediately put to work in the 2022 elections. We had a couple of really close elections. Geez, in 24, you know, we're probably going to, what's that race we're going to have that probably will be really close again in Arizona for president? And the way that has played out, it could disrupt the time frame so much so that we would not have, we wouldn't know which slate of presidential electors to send to D.C. to vote, you know, for president. So both parties have a stake in this. You know, we don't know who's gonna win. So we'll see what they can pull together on that, and that might be the first bipartisan vote coming out of the session.
All right, we indeed shall see. Panel, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Coming up tonight at 7. It's 7:30. At 8.